Now suddenly we're all talking about border protection again. This time the problem has been fixed, of course. There's no people smuggling coming onto our shores at the moment. It hasn't been for a long while. But the people who have been wrong on this issue all along, well, they're insisting now that they can be relied upon to make the right decisions. They want the Biloela family to be given visas. They want them to be allowed to settle permanently in Australia. Now, this family are Sri Lankans, Priya and Nadasangalam Murugappan, who arrived separately on people smuggler boats almost a decade ago. They met here, they got married here, and they have two daughters, Kopika 6 and Tharnika 4, who obviously were born here after that marriage. But they are not Australian citizens, born here to illegal non-citizens. The family were denied refugee status. They've been denied that repeatedly. And they settled in the Queensland town of Biloela while they fought through the courts to stay. 3 years ago, after losing court cases and appeals, they were put into detention on Christmas Island pending departure, again held up by more legal action. They are not refugees. They are free to return to Sri Lanka any day, where the civil war ended, of course, more than a decade ago. Now, after little Tharnika was medevaced to Perth recently, thankfully she's okay now, but after that and lots of public protests, the government is allowing the family now to stay in Perth under community detention while the legal procedures play out, the rest of the family being flown down from Christmas Island as we speak. That seems a reasonable concession for now, but the activists and the Labor Party and others, they want more. They want this family to be allowed to stay in Australia permanently. Now, it's the easiest thing in the world to say, let them stay. A beautiful young family, 2 children born here, a community in Queensland at Biloela eager to have them back and help them out. But we've seen the impact of soft border protection policies in the past. If you allow people who came here via people smuggling boats to stay, it can only encourage others. Complacency on these issues in the past quite literally has been a killer. It has been before and it could be again in the future. Remember the horrible tragedies and the overwhelmed detention centres full of children. No sensible government surely would want to risk all of that happening again. Many people are saying the difference in this case is that the children were born here. But that again could only create a perverse incentive. If you made an exception on that basis, you could create a perverse incentive for pregnant mums to take risky voyages on people smuggling boats or encourage others already here to have children in order to try to exploit our new loophole. No one would pretend these issues are easy. We don't elect governments to make easy decisions. Labor has an abysmal record on this stuff, always pretending to be tough, but always looking to weaken border security, and as I just showed you, with sometimes tragic consequences. Yet that isn't stopping them now.
This is beyond a shame. It's time for this sad, terrible saga to come to an end. This family has been through enough.
Christina Keneally would not know the first thing about border protection. She's a failed state Labor Premier, and now she seeks to unlearn everything this nation has learned over the past 3 decades or more. This is a diabolically tough policy area, we all know that. Everyone understands the hopes and aspirations of this family and many other families. But only a fool would pretend that weakness in this area, giving an unfair advantage to people who have gamed the system, might not send out the wrong signal and undo all of the hard work of previous years. Remember, we've undone this tough border protection regime twice in the past. And you only have to look at what's happening on the United States-Mexico border now to see what sending the wrong signal can do. I want to go now to the Federal Agriculture Minister, David Littleproud, who joins us live from Canberra. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thanks for having me, mate.
First up, you've spoken out for a compassionate resolution of this situation of the Biloela family. We all understand how it would be nice, but you must be drastically concerned that any exception here would be seen by people smugglers and others as a weakening in our resolve, a weakening in the Australian border protection regime.
Yeah, mate, I was asking for a compassionate and fair response to this, and I think Alex Hawke's achieved that. We, as I said the other day on breakfast television, are a law-abiding nation that are bound by the rules of the law in this country, and no one is above them. And so long as there is a fair and compassionate process put in place for everyone, no matter they be from outside this country or here, if they're here in our care, we actually have a responsibility to make sure that that's adhered to, and I think Alex Hawke's achieved that today. And I think the legal process that we'll go through now, we need to respect that, and we need to respect the arbitration of that by our courts. That is the system that has served Australia well over many, many years, and it's one that we should continue to have trust and faith in.
The trouble is that the legal process gets dragged out for so long. Now, we know that's because of the family and their supporters dragging it out as long as they can to put pressure on the government. Surely there's a way the government could revise the system that consolidates it all. You get a ruling, you have an appeal, and you move on from there, rather than allow them to effectively extend their stay here through all sorts of legal challenges.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's something to look to in the future, but the legal process that we have now is one that needs to be respected. You cut corners, then you take away anyone's right, whether it's this family or an Australian family here that are bound by the same laws, whether they be for this matter or anything else that Australians are bound by. There is a set process, legal process. If that can be expedited in a more efficient way, but maintains the fairness and equities that we expect in our legal system, then we're all ears. But the process we've got is the one that we have to adhere to now, and as quickly as we can get this to happen, I think would be beneficial not just to the family but to the nation. But the nation needs to understand this shouldn't be trial by popularity. This should be trial through our judicial system, one in which has set the foundation stones for a fair and compassionate country that we live in.
Indeed, a very difficult decision. I'm going to take this one up later on with former Nationals leader Barnaby Joyce, but I want to move on to your agriculture area. We're expecting to hear from the Prime Minister inside the next hour. Do you believe that the free trade agreement deal with the UK has actually been done? That's what he's going to announce?
Well, I'm hoping there was in-principle agreement last night, but there's been a lot of work done today around the detail and making sure that the devil in the detail is agreed to by both sides. And I think this would be a momentous occasion, particularly for the UK, who are looking for a free trade agreement. For Australia, it's another feather in our cap. It's free trade agreement number 15. And it gives our agricultural sector the opportunity to diversify markets. At the moment, we only export around $730 million to the UK, and in fact, they export into Australia around $850 million. So we've got a trading deficit. It's never really worried us, but if the UK want to come back after 50 years, then we have to make sure that it is as level playing field as we possibly can achieve, that Australian farmers shouldn't be disadvantaged, and whether we get that right. And the Prime Minister was clear from the start that he'd only sign one if Australian agriculture was to benefit. And I think some of the work that's being done, we should see that and without any disadvantage. Australian farmers have been playing on a level playing field, one in which most other countries haven't played on for some time. But we've still been able to grow our book, and tomorrow we'll be announcing it'll get to $66.3 billion this year, up $6 billion, despite drought, fire, flood and cyclone.
Yeah, the potential upside here in trade is enormous given where we used to be pre-European Union. I'm not suggesting it'll go back to that, but there's a lot of potential to increase our trade. Just on that, the pressure from the POMs is that they want working holiday visas here, people who want to extend their stay in Australia not to be forced to the regions. At the moment, if they want to extend, they have to go and work in regional Australia. That works well for us, works well for people in country areas. Have you given any ground on that?
Well, that is what they're asking for reciprocation of the rights that Australians have when they go to the UK. We don't allow that presently. We ask them to do 88 days in agriculture or aged care. So from a perspective of the National Party, if that is to be traded away, there has to be a replacement of that with a mechanism that would not just replace the quantity that would be lost, but actually continues to build to look to make sure that we continue to increase supply of our labour, seasonal labour here in Australia, because COVID-19 has really knocked around our working holiday makers, and we're slowly but surely replacing them with the Pacific Labour Scheme and seasonal worker program. But we need to make sure that if we are to give ground on that there is a mechanism to compensate and to actually build on. And the National Party has been very clear to our coalition partners that has to be achieved for us to continue to work through this. And I think we've all worked in good faith, not only through the free trade agreement, but external to that around how we're going to achieve that. The Prime Minister's been clear about making sure that he sees that as a big constraint on agriculture that he also wants to address.
Well, let's hope we can all see people coming out here on working holiday visas again pretty soon. Thanks for joining us, Minister. I appreciate it.
Thanks, mate.
David Littleproud there, the Federal Agriculture Minister.